Right now on Local 10, good morning, South Florida. Our coverage continues this morning. We are keeping an eye on Hurricane Dorian.
That's right. You're looking at the satellite loop right now of just that huge storm system. You can see how far the band stretch down to Cuba, all the way up into the northern Florida area. And we still are tracking it because it is such a slow mover, just dumping rain and flooding wherever it goes.
But finally this morning, it is moving, and it has not done that for quite some time. Our Weather Authority team walking into the studio just moments ago, they too are glad to see this storm on the move.
All right, so we're just hoping for anything we can get, right? Meteorologist Luke Doris, with every advisory that comes, we hope for that movement to show. And Hurricane Hunter aircraft was out there, and I know it's not impressive at all. But knowing that the movement is to the northwest at 1 mile per hour does mean that the system is going to eventually take that track towards the northwest and eventually to the north. The newest advisory as of 8 a.m. is winds of 120 miles per hour, pressure 952 millibars. It's located about 110 miles east-northeast of West Palm Beach, Florida. So the forecast has this system still just north of the Bahamas. As of that 8 o'clock advisory, still a very powerful hurricane, and the outer bands continue to wrap around that center of circulation, which doesn't look very impressive at all, pretty ragged. And one thing we're noticing is we're feeling those local impacts, and that's why we're keeping you posted on this hurricane, because locally we're already dealing with some very strong storms and some very strong winds. Tropical storm watch is still in effect for Fort Lauderdale. We have a hurricane watch and a tropical storm warning just north of us. The tropical storm watch means that Broward and Fort Lauderdale, you are under conditions that are favorable for tropical storm force winds. Those winds start at 34 miles per hour and 39 miles per hour rather, and go up to 74 miles per hour. I've highlighted the impacts. So Broward County, you'll deal with the possibility of tropical storm force wind gusts throughout the day. And for Miami-Dade, you could deal with some tropical storm force wind gusts, but the sustained tropical storm force winds are expected for Fort Lauderdale. So as the system heads towards the northwest, we're going to watch it. But one thing you'll notice, if you're just joining us from, say, yesterday, you'll notice that the forecast cone has shifted a bit more towards the east, pushing off the coast of Florida. But you guys, we've been saying this, it's such a monster of a storm. We're still going to be dealing with the impacts from this system up and down our states. And you know who's going to have more on the forward path is meteorologist Luke Doris.
Well, we're talking, Julie, it's only 1 mile per hour, the motion that the National Hurricane Center is giving it now, but at least it's moving, and it's moving in the right direction northwest. We have some hurricane hunters that are one hurricane hunter that's in the storm right now, and they're poking and prodding and seeing what the storm is looking like. We know it's weaker than it was this time yesterday. It's currently Category 3, but so far it looks like the data that they've put out maybe even a little bit lower. We're just going to have to see as they do all the passes through the storm, and also that'll give us a good fix on just how quickly it's moving. So as of right now, we'll say 1 mile per hour, but it's going to start to pick up some steam. Winds currently at 120. Pressure is up at 952, and on satellite it's looking quite a bit rough, more rough than it was this time yesterday, but still it's a devastating storm that's underway. All right, so this is, if we backtrack, we're going back to Sunday. Sunday it was here, Marsh Harbor. That's where we had it at peak intensity at 185 miles per hour. By 2 o'clock that day, it's just a little bit further west. So Elbow Key was the official landfall point, and then it got to Grand Bahama Island by 11 p.m. on Sunday. Here we are on Tuesday, and it's still over Grand Bahama Island. Though you can see this path finally starting to do this little wobble northward. You can barely even see the eye right now. The eye's all filled in. The storm structure is looking fairly disorganized right now, I mean, compared to what we have had. So that's another good sign that the storm is moving northward, maybe losing a little bit of its power. Here's the deal. So we are outside of the realm, the envelope of the tropical storm force sustained winds, but we'll still get some gusts here. This is by noon. Notice we're still Marsh Harbor. They so desperately need relief and help in the Bahamas, in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, and Grand Bahama Islands, but they can't do it until it's safe. And they're still under hurricane force gusts, even as it starts to move out. This is by noon today. So the further that we go into time, this is by this evening. Note that that starts to pull away. So we'll see some improvements in our weather here in South Florida by then. But Marsh Harbor out of it by this point. So they should be able to get some relief underway that they need so badly. And then by late tonight and into tomorrow, it actually moves out even further. And Grand Bahama Island is going to be in much better shape, so fantastic news there. Here's a closer view of the cone. You can see by this evening it hasn't moved much, but hey, it's moving some, so we'll take that. That's only about 40 or so miles, but still forecast to be Category 3 at that point. We'll see if that trend holds. By Wednesday morning, this right here is about Cape Canaveral, so somewhere offshore is the forecast now, but we have to keep in mind this is still, a close shave, and if it goes down the center of the cone, we're still going to have fairly large impact, storm surge, hurricane force gusts, if not hurricane force sustained winds. And if it's on the left side, which is possible, then the impacts would be even greater. But a landfall at this point is not forecast for Florida. They will have to watch that by late this week, Thursday, Friday, for the Carolinas, specifically North Carolina, as it sticks out. Some of the models do have it making a landfall or just grazing around Cape Hatteras. It'd be a big storm by that point, but weaker. The forecast winds at Category 2, 100 miles per hour. And then from there, racing up the northeast, it really picks up some speed. But by this weekend, they may even be affected by it in Boston or so. And after that, we should be done with Dorian. It finally moves out and dies. We're ready for that. So, Julie, what do we have with the wind gusts this morning?
Right now, here in South Florida, Luke, as we've been saying, we're just starting to feel the impacts of this system, even though we are still far away from it. We are dealing with some moderate to heavy precipitation, the rain band wrapping around the center, such a large system. And we're dealing with the possibility of tropical storm force wind gusts. So therefore, that's why Broward County is under a tropical storm watch rather. Currently embedded in these thunderstorms, we have moderate to heavy precipitation over Coconut Creek, North Lauderdale, Lauderdale by the Sea. Port Everglades getting soaked right now. As we continue south, drying out nicely in Miami, but the line of storms continue to progress over the lower Keys. So look at our wind speeds, anywhere between 14 to 20 miles per hour. Look at our gust right now in the 20s, 28 mile per hour wind gusts in Hialeah, 24 in Pembroke Pines, 29 Fort Lauderdale, 25 in Kendall. The Keys, we have wind gusts sustained in the 20s as well. So the winds are already starting to increase, and we'll see the peak winds between now and about 8 p.m., maybe even 7 p.m., depending on that forward path of Hurricane Dorian. Again, this is 40 mile per hour wind, stronger in some areas as our gust could be reaching tropical storm force strength going into the afternoon in Fort Lauderdale. We could see the possibility of some tropical storm force gusts in Miami-Dade embedded in the thunderstorms. I'll have more details on that coming up and your 7-day forecast in just a bit.